Okay, we get going. We're starting Bhagavad Gita as it is. Okay. Prabhupada called it as it is because he didn't. Sometimes people question this that, hey, how is Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is? He was not every verse is presenting Krishna as Bhagavan. Some verses are talking about karma. So the reason why Prabhupada called it as it is because the essence of Bhagavad Gita is as it is. One of the reasons why Prabhupada wrote a version of Bhagavad Gita is because there were so many versions floating around which completely removed Krishna from the picture. So Prabhupada brought the essence of Bhagavad Gita in every single verse purport that he wrote. That is why it's as it is. So you can, if somebody questions you, you can say that. Okay, so we will go through a few points here, right? So what is Bhagavad Gita? Where is Bhagavad Gita placed in all the Vedic books that we have? You might have heard of Upanishads, Aranyakas, and Vedas, and whatnot. So where does Bhagavad Gita stand in there? I'll briefly touch upon different school of thoughts. You don't have to memorize all that. I'm just giving you a background so that your foundation becomes strong. When you look at something, then you can look at it from that knowledge and viewpoint. You don't have to memorize all this. This is more of FII kind of a thing. Uh, then who are we? When we call ourselves Gaudiya Vaishnavas, whenever I do a disciple course, I always highlight this. We are Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya, and how do we fit into the bigger Vaishnava framework? Then we'll go through all the aspects of Bhagavad Gita, the setting the scene, there is dedication, there is preface and introduction. And then I'll give you a snapshot of who all are speaking in Bhagavad Gita, how many verses each person is covering. So that kind of kind of information. Okay. Uh, is this visible to all of you, like size wise, or is it too small for you? Can you all read it?
It's perfect, Prabhuji.
It's good. Okay, sounds good. So Bhagavad Gita. So all our Vedas, they are divided into two parts. One is Shruti and one is Smriti. Okay. So Vedas are Shruti. What that means is something that is to be heard, right? Shruti, the word Shruti is to hear. So those were supposed to be heard. Okay. And you will see that we have our four main Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sam, and Atharva.
Oh.
And then we have some secondary Vedas which talk about something specific, like Ayurveda talks of medicine, Dhanurveda talks of the
What's
science, of archery, right? So these are called Upvedas. They are subsections of the main Vedas. Okay, so however, as we know, if you have read the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we see how um, Vyasadeva is despondent. He's not happy even after he wrote all these Vedas. And when his spiritual master Narad Muni comes and he asks his spiritual master that, hey, what happened? I wrote everything, and then, but then why am I still not happy with it? And so, so Narad Muni, being a spiritual master, first he chastises him, and then he corrects him like a spiritual master should do, and then eventually he tells him that the words that do not glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, they are nothing but pilgrimage of crows. You know? So he uses the phrase, it's called Vayasam Tirtham. It's the first canto, fifth chapter. If you want to go back and read it, there's a very good discussion between Narad Muni and Vyasadeva. So it says it's Vayasam Tirtham, means it's a pilgrimage. Vayasam means crows. So even though it might be very beautifully written and spoken, but if it doesn't include about Krishna, then it's all just useless. But then on the other hand, if there is something that glorifies the Lord, but still it's not perfect. It might be imperfectly composed, grammatical errors, whatnot, but that is perfect. Right? That comes in the next verse, that first canto, fifth chapter. So these are 10th and 11th verse. I'm doing 11th verse is Tadvad Visargo Janataga Viplavo Yasmin Prati Shlokam Abhaddavati Api. Right. So it says that it Tadvad Visargo Janataga Viplavo. Janata, all the people, Janata who are hearing it, all their sins can be taken away. So that's the quality of a scripture that glorifies the Lord. So the reason I'm highlighting this part is because if you notice that on the side of this, I have written Karma Kand and Jnana Kand. So the Vedas, they don't directly talk about Krishna. Yes, they are a path to reach to bhakti, but they talk of so many things that people can get easily distracted. You want to get a good husband, you want to get a good wife, pray this, pray to this demigod. You want rains, go pray to this demigod. You want knowledge, pray to this demigod. Those kind of things are explained in there. That's the karma card. And then further on, as you read Upanishads, they become more on an intellectual level. We'll read the Ishopanishad after this book, after Bhagavad Gita, and you will see it's highly intellectual, right? So that's the consciousness and the purpose that the way Vyasadeva wrote it was because he knew that people in Kali Yuga are going to be Manda Sumanda Mateo Manda Bhagya Upadrita, right? It's the first canto, first chapter, verse number 10, if I remember. So let me see if I remember it correctly. Yes. I'll show it to you. Give me a second. So this is the 1:10, if anybody wants to keep record. Prayanal sabhya kalo asmin yuge janaha manda sumanda matyu manda bhagya upadrika. In this age of Kali, men almost always have short lives. They're quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all disturbed. So these are the qualities that we have. We are the people in the age of Kali. So that is why Vyasadeva wrote it in a way that wherever you are in the hierarchy, ignorant, passionate, goodness, wherever you can pick up something from the Vedas and move forward in your bhakti process. That was his goal. But then his spiritual master asked him that you should also write something to glorify Krishna. And that's where he wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so this was Shruti. And then Smriti is the Puranas, right? There are 18 Mahapuranas and there is 18 Upapuranas. So Srimad Bhagavatam is one of the Mahapuranas, right? And Smriti, as I was mentioning to you, Smriti means that which is understood, internalized, and expressed by sages. Okay, so that's why it's called a Smriti. That Smriti means memory, right? So you hear it, you understand it, internalize and express it, right? That's what the case is with Srimad Bhagavatam. Vyasadeva told it to Sukadev Goswami. Sukadev Goswami was speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, and there were many other stages, and in those stages was Sutta Goswami. And then Sutta Goswami comes back and in Naimisharanya, he's speaking to those other stages. So it's Smriti, it's being passed on. There was a hand that was raised. Gandharvika, was that you?
Yeah, could you please enlarge the slide? I'm sorry, my eyes, I can't see very well.
Let's see. I'll enlarge it for now when I'm going through the sections. And then, so what I was saying is the whole Vedic knowledge is divided into Shruti and Smriti. Shruti has the Vedas, which deal mostly with karma and, how to pray to demigods and so forth. And then it has some parts that talk about Gyan, knowledge also, like Upanishads. They are very intellectual kind of books. Whereas Smriti is something that is understood and then said again by somebody. And that includes the Mahapuranas, that includes Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, where does the Bhagavad Gita sit in? Bhagavad Gita is in Mahabharata, and it contains in the Bhishma Parva, that's the sixth book of Mahabharata, and the chapters are 25 to 42. That's where Bhagavad Gita sits. But then the quality of Bhagavad Gita is that because it's being spoken by Bhagavan himself. It's not like he is hearing from somebody and speaking. So it's basically Shruti sitting in Smriti. So just to clarify that. So that's the way to understand this. Because it's Bhagavan himself speaking. So it's been put in the in middle of Mahabharata. So the way it was that, first of all, Vyasadeva wrote all the four Vedas. Then he wrote Mahabharata, which is considered as the fifth Veda. And when he was writing the Mahabharata, in that somewhere in the middle, he included the Bhagavad Gita. So that people who are reading the Mahabharata, they will also read the Bhagavad Gita indirectly. So that's where Bhagavad Gita sits in, a Shruti in a Smriti. Okay. So this is about our Vedic corpus. Where does Bhagavad Gita sit in? Okay. So there are different schools, which I mentioned to you. Okay. Uh, so all of us, wherever or whichever path we are taking, we all aspire to be free. That's the goal, right? To be liberated from all our external limitations, limitations to our pursuit of happiness, right? Statue of Liberty in New York, why does it appeal to so many people? Because it symbolizes the human aspiration of freedom. And that's the same aspiration that countries celebrate, Independence Days, achievement of independence, as a defining moment in the national history. So freedom from all the external limitations to our pursuit of happiness is a desire of every living entity, whichever path may they be following. Right? However, this kind of liberation, it does not free us from our fundamental limitation. It can free you from some limitation in this material world, okay, but not from our fundamental limitation, which is the limitation of our inevitable mortality. We all are going to die. Nothing limits our pursuit of happiness more than death. Right? And what is dying is this body that I have, not the soul. Right? So many of the Eastern wisdom traditions, they have equated liberation with disentanglement from matter. That is why the only verse that people remember in Bhagavad Gita is that do your duty, right? Do your duty, and then just that's good enough. Why? Because people have been given that liberation means just when you do your duty without attachment, and you'll be liberated. But that's not what Bhagavad Gita is teaching us. Right? But then, unfortunately, many of these sections coming from the Eastern philosophy have this concept of liberation only. They don't take you to the level of bhakti, of having a loving relationship with Bhagavan. Right? For example, in this, so there are two philosophies: Astika, one which believe in the Vedas, Nastik, which don't believe in the Vedas. And if you see in them, there are 6 groups. For example, the Nyaya and the Vaisheshika, there are 2 groups, right? There is Vaisheshika here and Nyaya here. So these 2 schools, they hold that consciousness emerges when the soul contacts this material world through the mind. So they feel that I am bound in this world through the mind, which is true in one sense, but Bhagavad Gita is teaching us to go even beyond that, but they limit it to that. So they think that the liberation of the soul happens when it detaches itself from the mind, right? So that involves attainment of eternity, but without any consciousness or happiness. That is Sat, but there's no Chit and no Anand there. Okay? Like similarly, the Sankhya Yoga philosophy, right? They considered the consciousness, that I am a consciousness. It's a formless consciousness. Right? And when this formless consciousness interacts with the material nature, then we become bound. Okay. So liberation involves dissolution of that duality of, what am I saying? Duality of the soul and the prakriti, subject and the object. That's the duality. So to free yourself from that is so it's more like a contentless consciousness. So that's Sankhya Yoga. Similarly, Vedanta philosophy, it recognizes the Sat Chit Anand concept. So Sat Chit Anand, just to let you know briefly, is Sat means truth, Chit means, Sat is eternality, Chit is consciousness, Anand is bliss. And these are the 3 qualities that each one of us has. These qualities have been obscured, they're blocked when we interact with this matter. So liberation, which occurs when the soul detaches itself from the matter, leads to the experience of Satchidanand. But some of the Vedantic philosophies, they misconceive this in impersonal terms. Right? So what that impersonal means, that when I liberate, I go and merge with the consciousness, the cosmic consciousness. If you all have seen the we've seen the Mahabharata, right? And there, when Krishna kills Shishupal, Shishupal's consciousness comes and merges in Krishna. So that's the impersonalist aspect. Okay, so even though these impersonalists, they claim that, oh, there is happiness after liberation, but how can there be happiness if there is no relationship, if there is no reciprocity? Right? So there's no happiness, tangible happiness. So all these other groups, which I've been just talking to you about, right? Sankhya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, Yoga, Nyaya, Vedanta, the impersonalist Vedanta, which is the Advaita, that too also, they all are incomplete. They focus on the outer obstacles to happiness. It could be anything, foreign rule, worldly engagement, personal existence, whatever. However, the personalist aspect, which is essentially the path of devotion, sees liberation positively as an inside-out process that, okay, the revival of what lies within. But then the complete liberation happens only when the fulfillment of our core heart, what is our core longing? That is longing for love. We all are looking for love. That's all. The job you do, the family you have, the friend circle, the cars you buy, the houses you buy, everything is just because you're looking for the reciprocation. And it will give me happiness. That's all. So, but then when this desire for happiness and love is misdirected into this world, this longing causes bondage. I become dependent. Oh, this thing might bring me happiness. This thing might bring me happiness. But it never. But when we redirect that to Krishna conscious, Krishna, that brings us true liberation. Okay. So these are that's why I'm telling you these sections. And the Gnostic sections, we're not going to go through them. There's Buddhism, there is Jainism, there is Charvakism. So they are different, which don't believe in the Vedas. Right? So that's the division of our philosophy. So that's where we come in. So Mahaprabhu gave us Achinta Bhed Tattva. What that means is we are simultaneously one and different. Okay, that's Bhed Abhed. That Krishna, when we say that Krishna can only be formless, or we can say Krishna can only have a form, he can never be formless. We are limiting Bhagavan, we are limiting Krishna. That's why Mahaprabhu gave us a very complete philosophy that Krishna can be complete, can be impersonal, like you cannot it be formless and also with a form. But we as devotees know that the complete love and happiness or the reciprocation comes only from the personalistic relationship, Shama Sundar. Right? Yam Shama Sundaram Achintam Guna Sarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajan Brahm Samhita. There is a verse that says that all the devotees are meditating on the Shama Sundar form of Bhagavan, the Shama Sundar, the three-bent form of Krishna on the river banks of Yamuna. So that's what Mahaprabhu gave us. That's why it's complete. Right? So I'll take a pause here. I don't know if there was too much to handle or not, but if anybody has any questions, comments, thoughts, I'll give it a minute.
Yeah, it was little bit difficult, confusing the difference between Sankhya and Vaisheshika.
Mhm.
Can you please reiterate?
I can reiterate, but as I've mentioned, this is not for you for us to memorize it. This is not like a part of your exam or something. The reason I was just giving you so that you have an idea that there are different sections of the Eastern philosophy, and how do we the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, or we the devotees who believe in Krishna as Shyamsundar, as the two-armed beautiful boy, how that fits, that is complete in itself. That's what I was just, but I'll reiterate to you once again, but no problem. But I just want to let you know that don't think too much about it. Our goal is not to become intellectuals in Bhakti Shastra. Our goal is to develop that devotion in our heart, make our consciousness strong enough that when we are speaking or when we are discussing Bhagavad Gita with somebody, then we are able to be perfect.
I have a question.
Yes.
The Bhagavad Gita is a Smriti or Shruti? I didn't get that.
So Bhagavad Gita, as I mentioned in the earlier section, wait so slow. It's Shruti and Smriti. It's not either one. Bhagavan is not limited by any of these scriptures. But the reason it's Shruti and Smriti, because it's being spoken by Bhagavan himself. It's not as if somebody is speaking it and then reiterating it. But Vedavyas made it a part of Mahabharata, which is a Smriti. So we say it's Shruti, but it's been placed in Smriti section. That's the way we put it.
It's written there, right? Shruti.
Yeah, Shruti and Smriti.
It's
Yes,
in the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes. Yes.
And the other question is Jainism, and they don't believe in Vedas. I didn't know that.
No, they don't believe in Vedas. No. Buddhism, for example, see, Lord Buddha is also an incarnation of Bhagavan, of Krishna.
Right.
However, he comes with a purpose, specific purpose. All the incarnation of Krishna, when first of all, Lord Buddha came because people were misusing the Vedas. So he said, forget the Vedas, at least become a good human being. After Buddha, then came Shankaracharya. He said, okay, yes, Vedas talk of Bhagwan in a form. Forget, he's not a form, formless. Just focus at least on the formless. Then came Ramanujacharya. He said, no, Bhagwan is a form. So this whole cosmic creation is running according to Krishna's plan, with his only plan being that may every child of mine come back to me. But some are really naughty, some don't want to listen to Krishna, so he has to find ways to bring them back. So when he saw that people were misusing the Vedas, he said, I'll come as Buddha and I'll tell them to forget Vedas for some time. And at least I'll teach them that, at least don't become such fools. Forget the Vedas, be a good human being. And when the society starts to change, people start becoming human beings again, then I'll start again bring them back to bhakti. But I cannot immediately bring them back to bhakti. They cannot understand it right away. So I have to gradually progress it. First, I'll tell them God is formless. Then I'll bring Ramanujacharya and say, no, God has a form. And then Mahaprabhu, I'll come as Mahaprabhu and say, yes, I can have a form and formless also. But we love the form. So that's the whole cosmic drama that Krishna does.
Veda. That means it's form and formless.
Abheda. Yes. Achintya Abheda Bheda. That's formless and form. It's we are same as and different at the same time. Yeah.
Right. But in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, this is not anything mentioned, right? Like
this is not there. I'm just giving you some background so that you all have that understanding that where does Bhagavad Gita sit into. Because Bhakti Shastri is about having a complete understanding of the books that Prabhupada has written. That's why I request all of you to read again and again. Right? Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita, at many points, he will talk of Sankhya philosophy. He will talk of Charvaka Muni. If you don't know what the background, if we all don't know that, we will not be able to relate to the Bhagavad Gita.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhupada will talk of Vedanta. He'll talk of Vedanta. But if you don't know what does Vedanta mean, or what does Achinta Bhed Bhetattva mean, we'll not be able to connect. That's why I always give this background.
Right. That's great. Yeah. So this one we will have it, right?
Yes, I'll give you the slides. Yes. No, don't worry about that.
All right. Thank you so much. That's good to begin with.
You're welcome.
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Would you please explain Smriti again? What is the meaning of
Smriti means that which is spoken by somebody, understood by me, I've internalized it, and then I express it to somebody else. Let's take the example of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is coming from its Aporisha. It's coming from Krishna himself. Krishna gave it to Brahma, and then Brahma further gave it to, and it came to Vyasadeva. But then Vyasadeva told it to his son, Sukadeva Goswami, and Sukadeva Goswami speaking to Parikshit Maharaj at the Ganga, bank of Ganga. And there in that assembly is also a sage known Sutta Goswami. And Sutta Goswami comes back and he's speaking to the sages in Naimisharanya. So it's been heard by somebody, it's been internalized by that devotee, and then he's further expressing it to some other people. That's what smriti means. Smriti, the word smriti means memory.
Memory, right?
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
There was some other, I know Julian Yatra had a question, but I not, was there anything else?
Yes.
Prabhuji.
So how is Sanatana Dharma applies to all of this?
So Sanatan Dharma, Sanatan means eternal, the word eternal, right? Krishna says in the 15th chapter, 7th verse, Mamai Vamsho Jeev Loke, Jeev Bhuta Sanatana, Manha Shashtani Indriyani, Prakrti Sthani Karshati. That is saying, Mamai Vamsho Jeev Loke, Jeev Bhuta Sanatana. That you have been my part and parcel since eternity. Understanding that I am a part and parcel of Bhagavan Krishna is the Sanatan Dharma. Right? And that I'm not just an individual soul floating around in this creation. I'm a part of Krishna. When I live with that mindset, with that harmony of this creation of Bhagavan, that lifestyle is called Sanatan Dharma. So when I say that Sanatan Dharma, now that can be further divided, right? That you can say that, oh, God does not have a form, or somebody can come and say God has a form. But then the basic foundation of both of them is that Bhagavan exists and we are his part and parcel. So they both will be a part of Sanatan Dharma. Did that make any clear?
So I'm just asking to see if there's a relationship with all of these boxes that applies to all of these boxes, but I think Buddhism doesn't apply Sanatana.
Yeah, so Buddhism, so the Gnostic section does not apply to Sanatan Dharma.
But all the others are Nastika.
Yes, because they all believe in the Vedas. They might have some details, like for example, right, Christianity. They all say Jesus Christ, Son of God, and He's the only Savior. But then when you break down, they are evangelicals, they are Protestants, they are Reformists, they are, Korean Church. They are different sections underneath. But at the end of the day, the foundation is same. Christ is our Savior, is the only Savior, and He's the Son of God. So similarly, yes, there are subsections. But then all of them come under Sanatan. But then what Mahaprabhu gave us is complete in one sense. All the others are incomplete. That is why what Mahaprabhu gave us is complete, and following that gives us that complete liberation that we all are looking for.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So going back to the question that Julian Yatra was asking me. So let me just say it this way. Okay. Sankhya Yoga. So, or let's even take the Nyaya and the Vaisheshika. Let's just combine those two schools. So those two schools, they say that the consciousness emerges when the soul comes in contact with this material world. Okay. And they say that, so it's basically the soul coupling with the mind and coming in contact with this samsara, right? So they say that liberation means detaching yourself from this mind. For them, that is liberation. Okay. But then, as I told you, as a soul, we have Sat, Chit, and Anand. So there is, when the Nyaya or the Vaisheshika think about it, there are some minor differences. I won't go into them, but generally that's the common point these two have. They have the eternality concept that you'll become eternal, but there is no consciousness, there is no happiness in there. Okay. So that's one thing. So Vedanta, again, now Vedanta, they say they believe in that Satchidanand, the whole three things, but then they say that Bhagavan is impersonal. He doesn't have a form. Okay. So the difference between Nyaya Vaisheshika is that Nyaya Vaisheshika, they are saying that liberation from mind or decoupling ourselves from the mind will liberate us. Whereas the Vedantas say that Bhagavan is impersonal and merging in that Bhagavan will give us the true liberation. So there are differences, right? Sankhya Yoga thinks that the consciousness is eternal, right? And so there are some differences here and there. I'm not sure if that was of any help, my repetition to you.
Yeah, I was just more concerned with Vaisheshika, what that is. But I think I understood what you were saying.
Yeah. So Vaisheshika, don't go by the name that we have of a spiritual master in ISKCON. Don't go by that. His name means, Vaisheshika means somebody who has unique, Vishesha qualities. So Vaisheshika Das means that spiritual master is a servant of Krishna who is Vaisheshika, who has very unique qualities.
Oh,
So that word is different than
I
this
see.
one. They're not the same words.
Okay.
Yes.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome. Okay. So all good.
I
So
have a
then,
question, Prabhu.
yes, please.
So for the main difference between the Astik and the Nastik, so Astiks are they think the God has a form, and the Nastik they don't think
No,
that.
no. Astik, the word Astik means they believe in the Vedas. They believe in that concept that Bhagavan is there and the Vedas are there for us. Nastik means they don't believe in the Vedas.
So
But
what is the school of thought like?
they don't believe, they have, like, for example, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is Rishabdev, right? So there is a Rishabdev is there. Now the Jainism, they pray to Rishabdev, right? But they don't connect that Rishabdev is an incarnation of Bhagavan also. They don't make that connection. For them, that connection is lost. And that's the connection. That's the Vedic connection. They have removed that from the picture. So now suddenly they have stopped believing in the Vedas. They have created something of their own. Buddhists say there is nothing after this world ends, right? Shunyavadi. That's what Prabhupada came here for. Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha. Shunyavadi was one of the words that comes in Prabhupada's mantra. Shunyavadi is zeroism. They say that nothing beyond this life. That's the Buddhist philosophy. So they don't believe in the concept of Vedas. Charvaka is all about materialism. Have fun, enjoy, and go back. And just, there's nothing after this life. So they don't believe in the concept of Vedas. They don't follow the Vedas. Whereas the Astiks, they follow the Vedas.
So they follow some, like like in Jainism, they follow. They think that person is only the savior, like.
Yeah, they think it that way.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
His what? I missed that.
Is the savior.
Savior.
Oh, seven.
Yes, Sandeep Prabhu.
Prabhuji, for the Sankhya, is Sankhya the same as Mayavadi, where they believe in merging with the Supreme, or it's different than the Mayavadi?
So Prabhupada uses the word Sankhya in many different scenarios. So yes, some places Prabhupada by Sankhya means that also.
Okay.
That impersonalist. So Sankhya Yoga, I don't know if in Srimad Bhagavatam, we read Kapila Muni also gives us the Sankhya philosophy. So the word Sankhya means to count. Sankhya, it comes from the word Sankhya, to count. And what does it mean to count is that you look at all the details of this material creation. Like, for example, you like to eat cake. But instead of the cake, I bring in front of you, like I say, some flour, I bring some sugar, I bring some milk there, I bring some butter, and I put all those ingredients in front of you. Now you don't want to eat them. You only want to eat it when it becomes a cake. But by breaking it down into pieces, you have suddenly detached yourself from it to a good extent. That, oh my God, this is made up of all these things which are tasteless and useless, right? Similarly, let's say you look at a person and you say, oh, this person is so attractive. But when you see it at a very Sankhya level, you see that the person is made of nothing else but bone, blood, and there's all gross stuff in this body. That way, you can consciously detach yourself from attachment to the physical body. So that's why it's called Sankhya Yoga, right? So I'm just saying it that keep in mind that it can be used differently in different places. Prabhupada uses the word Sankhya at some point to also stress on the second concept that I explained to you, the cake example that I was giving.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. So Krishna, he became the Sarthi of Arjun. Sarthyam Arjuna Sadau. I forgot that verse. There's a very beautiful verse. I'll share it to you. Where we offer our obeisances to Krishna, who's the soul of this entire creation. He became a Sarthi of Arjuna to give us the nectar of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so this was this. I think I spent some time here. Then let's look what's next. Okay, so I'll briefly touch on this, where we stand in the Sampradaya. So from Sri Krishna, Bhagavan, there are 4 Sampradayas. There is Brahma Sampradaya, there is Shri Sampradaya, there is Shiva Sampradaya, and there is Kumara Sampradaya. When you say Sampradaya, means this knowledge was passed to 4 different entities, and from there are 4 different lineages of Vaishnavism coming down to us. So we are in a part of the one that was given to Lord Brahma. So if you read the Bhagavad Gita, if you have a hard copy around you, you will see after the introduction, Prabhupada gives the disciplic succession. And the reason Prabhupada gives the disciplic succession is to stress on the fact that we are a bona fide sampradaya. We are coming all the way from Krishna. We are not something that Prabhupada concocted when he came to America. So because there were a lot of cases at the time when Prabhupada was here on him, that saying that, oh, this is something he has concocted. There is no philosophy like this, Krishna consciousness. So he had to stress on that. So yes, so we are of the Lord Brahma's Sampradaya. Madhvacharya is our prominent guru. So we become Brahma, Madhva, and then Gaudiya. Gaudiya means Gauda Desh is Bengal. Mahaprabhu was from Bengal, so we are Gaudiya Vaishnavas. That's who we are. Okay, setting the scene and the dedication. So setting the scene describes how Prabhupada, Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita is important, especially for the Western audience, right? It gives a historical context of the book, setting the scene, right? And then the publishers, it was written by the publishers, setting the scene. And those publishers highlight in that section that most of the versions of Bhagavad Gita in English, they have removed Krishna from the picture completely to make room for their own concepts and philosophies. And I'll talk about a couple of those later on. And I think in the preface, there is a mention of them. So for them, Krishna just becomes a poet, he becomes a mystic, he becomes a genius, or merely a historical figure. But that's not what Krishna is. Krishna is Bhagavan. He's Bhagavan. And that's why Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita is the most important Bhagavad Gita. That's why Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita is the most read Bhagavad Gita in this entire world. Right? Every year, we are distributing millions and millions of Bhagavad Gitas. Last year, we distributed 3.5 million. I think this year, the goal of ISKCON BBT is to distribute 4.2 million Bhagavad Gitas. And next year is a milestone goal of distributing 5 million Bhagavad Gitas. That's why it's the reason it's sold so much or distributed so much, because it gives a very clear picture of what Krishna was saying in it. Right? So, Prabhupada's biography, it takes us towards Krishna rather than taking us away from Krishna. That's why the Bhagavad Gita thus becomes wholly consistent and comprehensible. Since Krishna is the speaker of Bhagavad Gita and he is the ultimate goal as well, the Bhagavad Gita as it is presents this great scripture in its true form, in true terms. Okay? That's why setting the scene is there. Then, if you notice, there is a section about dedication. The dedication is to Baldev Vidyabhushan. Now, that's a very important thing. Why Prabhupada dedicated to Baldev Vidyabhushan? Because, to give you some history, when the Mughals attacked India, they started destroying all our temples, especially Vrindavan. Right? Aurangzeb was one of them who he wanted to destroy. He was very envious of Vrindavan and those big temples. Aurangzeb's, I think he was in Agra, and from Agra he could see the lamp that used to be lighting on Govindaji's temple at that time. And he was very envious, and he would attack Vrindavan, break all the temples. That's why, to protect the deities, many of the deities were transferred to Jaipur. Many of you might already know that there are 3 main deities that are there in Jaipur, which was originally in Vrindavan. And so Baldev, so when they were in Vrindavan, Gaudiyas, we pray to Radha Krishna. However, these other Vaishnavas, they pray to Lakshmi Narayan, right? They pray to Lakshmi Narayan. And Lakshmi Narayan, they say that, oh, Radha never married Krishna. So this deity form of Radha Krishna is not bona fide. And so Baldev Vidyabhushan was the devotee who went to Vrindavan, sorry, he went to Jaipur, and he established the respectability, the credibility, the authenticity of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And he presented it in his book called Govinda Bhashya. Right? And that book was a commentary on the Vedanta philosophy. Right? And because they said that, oh, the Gaudiyas don't have a commentary on Vedanta, so they cannot be a bona fide. And so he wrote it and he presented it and nobody could question it. That's how he established the Gaudiya Vaishnavism as an integral part of the Vaishnava philosophy. That's why Prabhupada gives a dedication to Baldev Vidyabhushan. Okay. Then we
it's
have
a very nice, very nice story about that Govinda. Govinda, Lord Govinda inspired him. He spoke to him, right?
Yes, he spoke to him. Yes.
Yeah.
Baldev Vidyabhushan he felt that, oh, I'm not qualified to write. How will I write it? But then Govinda Dev came and he recited to him what to write. And then next day he presented it to everybody and it was perfect. Nobody could find flaws.
Approved, yes.
Yeah. So Prabhupada is appreciating the effort of Baldev Vidyabhushan by dedicating the Bhagavad Gita as it is to him.
Yeah.
Okay. Introduction and preface. So the introduction, Prabhupada wrote it with the Bhagavad Gita.
The long one.
And the preface was written at the time of publication. Right. So the purpose of the introduction and preface was to preparing the audience in the right mood by getting them in the right mood to understand the Bhagavad Gita. And he was calling it as it is because people misinterpreted Bhagavad Gita and Prabhupada wanted them to all come back and understand the true purport of Bhagavad Gita. Right? So then the preface, okay? Preface, when you read, right? So Prabhupada in India, when Prabhupada was in India, he was known as an author, okay? He has published books. He had sent the Srimad Bhagavatam to local libraries, to the government libraries and so forth. But when he came to the US, he became a Swami, his disciples, but his disciples were very new. And they were not influential, they were not connected. They had a lot of sincerity, but they were not socially compatible. That was the problem with this, right? So when Prabhupada wanted to publish his books here, he really had to go through a lot, right? So his Bhagavad Gita version, his disciples would take all to so many publishing houses, but nobody wanted to publish, right? And this is a story you can read in the Prabhupada Leelamrita, that Prabhupada, one day what happened was, devotees got a letter from Macmillan. The Macmillan was a publishing house. They wanted one of the records that initially, many devotees had just recorded and they were selling that record. Record means like a music record. And then, Brahmanand Prabhu went to give the record to the person who had asked it from the Macmillan company. And then, but then that person was just a clerk, because Prabhupada had given the Brahmanand Prabhu the Bhagavad Gita manuscript and said, hey, just tell them that publish this. But then as Brahmanand Prabhu was about to leave, the editor of the Macmillan publishing house came into that room of that clerk. And then the clerk introduced Brahmanand Prabhu that, oh, he bought me that record and this record is very good. And then Brahmanand Prabhu took this chance and said, hey, we have a manuscript of Bhagavad Gita. Would you like to publish it? And the Macmillan editor, he became very excited. He said, oh, yes, I was looking for a version of Bhagavad Gita and I have everything. Quran we have published a Bible, but we don't have the Bhagavad Gita. So they published it. Right? So that's where this whole thing happened and started. So, yeah, so that's the preface. So the introduction, when you read the introduction, there are many things that Prabhupada discusses in the introduction. And I think I have it some in a slow. This I we talked about. Right, so I just put this as step by step. So Prabhupada starts with the prayers, right? We all read those prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandhasta all the way to Hare Krishna mantra. They're the first 2 pages of the introduction. So the prayers, Prabhupada wrote those prayers, and just to, as a technical thing, that's the only place where Prabhupada brings Radharani's name. Otherwise, Prabhupada does not bring Radharani's name. Right? So Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari. Shabhanusute Devi, Pranamami Haripriya. Right? So that's why, so that's the prayers that come in. Then comes the mood in which to accept the Bhagavad Gita that Prabhupada elaborates. So what's the mood? Prabhupada says that just as a medicine works only if taken according to the doctor's prescription, the Gita must be accepted as it is, without adding or subtracting any meaning. Many commentators, as I was saying, they impose their own philosophy. But Prabhupada stresses that Gita should be received in the same spirit as Arjuna accepted, without envy and in a submissive way. Right? Bhakto si me sakha cheti. In the 4th chapter, 2nd verse, Krishna says that to Arjuna, that I am speaking this book to you because you are my disciple. Bhakto si me sakha, you are my friend. So bhakta means you're obviously not envious, you're submissive. Right? So that's what Prabhupada says. And then what is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita? That's something Prabhupada talks about. That is meant to free us from the bodily concept of life and awaken us to the eternal spiritual nature. And I was talking about liberation. So the true liberation means purified consciousness. And what is the purified consciousness? I am a servant of Lord. Right? Jiva Krishna Das. That I am an eternal servant of Krishna. I'm not an independent enjoyer. And so the Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to live in this world. And eventually, when we are about to leave this world, then we can go back home, back to God. Okay. And then there are 5 basic truths that Prabhupada elaborates, which are a part of Bhagavad Gita. Anybody knows those 5 things? Do you have read the introduction?
Truth. High basic truth.
Let me see. I'll call
3.
somebody. I see many people. Okay.
Yeah, the difference between God and Jivatma, I think.
So who can tell me? Saina, you there? Can you tell me? Saina is not there. Okay.
Basic.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes. Prabhuji, Prakriti, Jeev, and Krishna, Bhagwan, Jeev, Prakriti, Kal, and Karma.
Yes. Ishwar, Jeev, Prakriti, Kal, and Karma. Yes. Together, these explain our situation, where we are, who we are, where we are, and then how to escape this material entanglement. So, yeah. So those are the 5 basic truths that Bhagavad Gita outlines. Okay. And then what is our conditioned nature? Prabhupada talks about that. So living entities are eternal and spiritual. Right? But we become bound to the material energy because of our desire and karma. 13th chapter, 22nd verse, Krishna says that. Bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangasya sadasa yoni janmashu. Right? We get bound by our desire to enjoy. Right? So the conditioned life, the word condition, Prabhupada uses the word condition, even though when we use the word condition, we use it in a way that, okay, conditions apply, kind of a situation, right? But here the word Prabhupada is using it, that conditioned in the sense that the soul's happiness is dependent on so many conditions that are not under our control. Right? So Prabhupada uses it slightly different. So conditioned life means being forced by Prakriti to act according to the modes of nature. So that's conditioned. Right? We wrongly think we are independent, but we are not independent. We are controlled at every moment. Birth, death, disease, everything. And then another important thing, or actually one of the most important things Prabhupada highlights is that God is a person. Bhagavan. Right? Krishna is not an impersonal force or an abstract concept. He's a person with form, qualities, and activities. So, understanding Bhagavad Krishna, God as a person, is central to developing a relationship with him. Okay. Then Prabhupada goes on to tell us that Vedic knowledge is Apaurushya. So the word Apaurushya means Vedic knowledge is eternal and infallible. It is not compiled by a human being. It has been revealed by the Lord himself through disciplic succession. So then it makes it free from the 4 defects of human beings. Okay? So that's why, because it is perfect, it's coming from Bhagavan himself, those four problems cannot be in Bhagavan. So what are the four problems? It's Brahm, Pramad, Vipralipsha, Karnaptava. So what are the four defects? The first is Brahm, the tendency to commit mistakes. Right? Mistakes, right? We misplace our keys, forget names, misjudge people. We make mistakes all the time. Right? So that's Brahm. Pramad. Pramad
And
means
proud and cheating.
yeah. So pramad means to be illusion. Illusion. So right? Illusion means we say that the sun is rising and setting, but the sun is not rising and setting. It's the earth that is revolving. So it's an illusion. And we all must have seen, right? You put a pencil in a glass of water and you see that the pencil has bent, but it's not bent. It's just an illusion of our eye. So that's another thing. And
Cheat.
Vipralipsa, yes, cheating propensity. It's very common in all of us human beings that we want to cheat each other, right? Just imagine all these scientists across this creation saying, I think this is happening. This tries, they try to appear knowledgeable, even when they don't know what's happening. So that's called cheating tendency. It's always there, cheating tendency. And Karnapatva is the imperfect senses. Right? So imperfect senses, we can't hear dog whistle, right? There's a different frequency, but the dogs can. So that's an imperfect senses, right? And the reason Prabhupada is bringing those four things, because he's connecting them to Bhagavad Gita being spoken by Bhagavan himself, so it cannot be a part of, cannot have these four defects. Brahm, Pramad, Vipralipsa, Karnapatva, Ishwarera Vakya, Nahi Dosha Isama. That says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says this in the Adi Leela, the first part of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think he's in the 7th chapter, I think. So he says that these four defects of mistake, illusion, cheating, and imperfect senses, they do not exist in the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is why Prabhupada is bringing it up here for us to understand the four defects in all of us. Okay, yes, so these are the four things. And then Sanatana Dharma, Prabhupada is saying that Sanatana Dharma is the eternal function of the living entity. So when I started reading the Bhagavad Gita for the first time, I always thought dharma means religion. But Prabhupada clarifies to us all the time that dharma doesn't mean religion. Dharma means the eternal occupation of the soul. Something that nobody can take away from me. My identity as a father, as a son, as a husband, wife, daughter, whatever it may be, all can be taken away at some point or the other. I work somewhere, I call myself that, oh, I am a scientist, I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor. A time comes when we retire. We don't have that designation anymore. But there is one designation that nobody can take away from us. And that is servant. We all are serving somebody or the other. In a perverted way, we are serving people in this world. I'm serving my boss. I'm serving my family. I'm serving this, whatever. I'm paying taxes and the taxes are being used for somewhere and I'm serving. But actually, my dharma of me as a soul, is to serve Bhagavan. Jivera Swarupo Hoy Nitya Krishna Das, that I am an eternal servant of Bhagavan. Right? Prabhupada always gave this example. I was hearing to Prabhupada this morning. Prabhupada was saying, sugar's dharma is sweetness, chili's dharma is being pungent. So if you take that away, they are nothing. You cannot say anything about them. So similarly, our occupation is to serve, and that nobody can take away from us. So service is ours forever. Yes, there's a hand up. Who's up? Purnamasi Devidasi.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, you mentioned perverted. Can you elaborate what do you mean perverted?
Perverted, in what sense did I was saying perverted?
You mentioned the dharma, right? We are serving somebody in a perverted way, right? Whether we are serving ourselves or family member. I mean, you just used perverted.
Oh, okay. So as I was saying, the natural tendency of the living entity is to serve Krishna. However, that tendency can be not directed towards Krishna, but directed towards something else. Material objects, family, nation, my possessions, my own body. Then it becomes perverted. And if I give you another word, means misapplied, applied in a wrong way. Right? The spirit soul is there. I am there as a living entity, but I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, what is my natural tendency. So that's why it's become perverted.
But in a way, we need to take care, right, Prabhu, of ourselves, our health, and our family.
Yes.
So, of course, there's a balance. At the same time, we can't just neglect duties to oneself or to our family. And would Krishna be happy otherwise, where we neglect all this and only keep Krishna in the center? Like, how do we?
So it's a gradual thing. So yes, Krishna is never asking us to leave our family. He's never saying that. But if you forget Krishna and fully focus on family, then it becomes perverted.
That's also bad. Yeah. Okay.
Krishna in the, which chapter? 8.7. Krishna in 8.7 says, Tasmad sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmana yuddhacha mai arpito mano buddhir mam evashyasi ashamshaya. I was just talking to my wife an hour ago, and we were just discussing what is the purpose of life. 8.7 tells you the purpose of life. Tasmad sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmana yuddhacha. He's telling Arjun, Krishna is telling Arjun, Tasmad sarveshu kaleshu. Every single moment. Tasmad, therefore, sarveshu, all the time, kaleshu, time. Right? Every time, remember me and fight Arjun. Arjun's duty was to fight. His material duty was to fight. So Krishna was asking him that do your material duty, but remember me. Similarly, as you were saying, we all have duties towards family, towards the country, towards my job. Do that, but keep Krishna in your mind. When you go to work, don't think that you're working for your boss or for this XYZ company. Think that this is a duty that has been assigned to me by Krishna, and I will offer to the Krishna this job, whatever. I'll do it to my best, and I'll offer it to Krishna. So it becomes tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manasuna yuddhecha. My arpito mano buddhi. Give me your mano and buddhi, mind and intelligence. Offer it to me. And Krishna elaborates that a lot in the 9th chapter, right? Yad karoshi, yad ashnashi, yad juhosi dadasiyat, mat tapasyasi kvanteya, kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer it to me. So that way you can bring your buddhi and intelligence also to Krishna. And then when we leave the body, tasmad sarveshu kaleshu, ma manusmra yuddhecha, mayarpito mano buddhir. When you have completed these 3 stages, mayarpito mano buddhir, the last stage comes, mayarpito mano buddhir, mam evashyasi ashamsaya. Mam evashyasi. You come to me, ashamshaya, don't fear. You'll come to me for sure. That's the way we all are supposed to live our lives. I mean, this is
yeah, and also.
Yeah,
and also it helps to be unattached to the results also, right, Prabhu? When we kind of do it for Krishna and keeping Krishna in the center,
yes.
you are not affected by the outcomes of whatever positive or negative it may yield.
It is, yes. And that's a very good situation. But then that's why I was saying that the philosophy that we have got from Prabhupada and from Mahaprabhu is complete. Because at one point you can say that I'm not attached to the results. But sometimes you would want the devotees also think, wish I could serve Krishna in this way. Sometimes you will see that devotees become in that mindset that, I want to serve Krishna, I will do something. So they start thinking that way also. But that's all spiritual in nature. We should not think it of on a material platform. But it's a gradation. We are not there yet. When the devotee becomes pure, they can also come to that next level. But yes, for now, yes, to be detached from all the results. Try that, yes. Okay, so yes, that was the eternal dharma. And then I mentioned we are related to Krishna in the form of service. Yes, that's the last thing Prabhupada talks about. Right, so this is a very good, and if all of you have not read it, please, I would request you all read the introduction. I know in the smaller book there are 26 pages. I don't know in the hardbound how many they are, but please read it. You don't have to read all in one go. You will become very bored and it will be overwhelming. Read 2 paragraphs every day, 3 paragraphs, whatever you can understand easily. But you'll be surprised how Prabhupada gave the entire philosophy of Bhagavad Gita in those few pages. Okay, so that's the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so some technical things here, right? So there are Krishna speaks. There are in total 700 verses. Krishna speaks 575 of them. Arjuna speaks 83 of them. Right? And then Sanjay speaks 41. And Dhritarashtra speaks one verse. That's the first one. Right? Yes, that's the first verse where Bhagavad Gita starts. Right? Dharm Kshetre Kurukshetre Mamaveta Yuyutsava Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. That's the only verse Dhritarashtra speaks. And then you'll notice that across Bhagavad Gita, Arjun is called by many different names. He's saying, Parth, he's called as son of Pritha. And then in the 18th chapter, Krishna calls him Purusha Vyagra, that you are the lion among men. And similarly, Krishna also has many names. And the purpose is that each of those names, they are indicating a personal nature of that person, of Arjun or Krishna. And there's some sort of a reciprocation and relationship there. Okay? So I have, I know some people don't fully, many of you might know already the whole dynasty of Krishna, and there'll be a lot of names that come across Bhagavad Gita. I just put it here. I'm not going to go through this. You can look at it. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. But I just put a chart of the Kuru dynasty. How does it all come? Where does Arjun come? Who's his father, his father's father, and so forth. So you can look at it. Okay. And the last thing I just wanted to touch upon before we wrap up was, why was Bhagavad Gita spoken on a battlefield? I get this question so often that I thought that I should include this in the Bhakti Shastri. Okay. Arjun is asking a very deep philosophical question. And Krishna is answering those questions based on our dharma. Right? So the utilization, okay. One reason, I'll just come to the reasons I was trying to give you back. But so one thing is that it's meant to demonstrate the urgency of the philosophical message, right? I meet people every day. Just last Saturday, I was at somebody's, somebody had organized a program. They were celebrating Nandotsav. I was there. Somebody was telling me, oh, I don't have time. My children, my job, I'm very busy. I don't have time for all this. I said, fine. And I'm not going to even force you. It's not my job to force you. So that's why, who can be more in an urgent situation than Arjun? Two parties ready to fight a war. And he says to Krishna that, take me to the middle of the battlefield. That's why it shows that the philosophical message is so important. Whatever may be going through your life, this is something that you should bring in your life. Right? So what can be in a greater crunch for somebody like a warrior who's about to fight a war? If a war is delayed, he may lose his life. Right? So it demonstrates how spirituality is urgent. It cannot be postponed for anything. Right? So that's one reason why Bhagavad Gita is spoken on the battlefield. Right? Secondly, the war setting also demonstrates the point of social responsibility of spiritualists. Right? If you read the whole Bhagavad Gita, the word war, yuddha, is not mentioned many times. I think hardly a dozen times. Right? But then there is a 11th chapter. There is a lot of that war, that all people are coming in the universal form's mouth and so forth. Right? Yet at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjun fights. So that means that even if you have illuminated spiritually, you are self-realized, you should not give up your social responsibility, whatever it may be. As I was quoting 8.7, Tasmad Sarveshu Kaleshu Mam Anusvare Yuddhecha. That should be our mantra for all of us. We have to do our social responsibility, but by bringing Krishna into the picture in each of those services. You are bringing up children. Bring up children with the mindset that this is a responsibility given to me by Krishna. Krishna has sent a soul in my life to be taken care of. Okay. So whatever social responsibility, for Arjun, his social responsibility was fighting the war. For us, it might be different. Right? So the war setting also demonstrates the social responsibility of spiritualists. Right? It's not like you will leave everything, go sit in the Himalayas. No, everybody has a responsibility to society. Right? But then we also maintain the order in the society. So we as spiritualists have a higher responsibility even. We share this spiritual knowledge, right, with others. And we support whatever little we can in creating systems that will share spiritual knowledge and that responsibility. You should not say, oh, no, bhakti, I do at my house. I don't have to do anything else to do. No, Prabhupada taught us you have to come out of your comfort zone and you have to go and give bhakti to others also. That's the goal of Bhagavad of Bhakti Shastri. You all have to become strong in bhakti yourself, but also you have to go out and give it to others. Then the whole process gets complete. Okay. Thirdly, Gita also teaches us the last thing: we should not run away from violence in the name of pacifism. When everything else fails, if there's no other way to resolve, so violence cannot be eliminated. In the Bhishma Parva is where the Bhagavad Gita was. Just before Bhishma Parva is Udyog Parva. Udyog Parva gives a lot of detailed description of what all the Pandavas did to avoid war. But when Kauravas stubbornly, bluntly, insolently, they rejected all peace proposals, then the only way to restore justice in the society was fighting a war. Okay. So the Bhagavad Gita, with its background, demonstrates that war should not be anything but the last alternative. But it is an alternative. So that is why the concept that Mahatma Gandhi brought forth, right, that if somebody slaps on one cheek of yours, you show the other cheek. That's not coming from Bhagavad Gita. People might say, oh, Mahatma Gandhi got his philosophy from Bhagavad Gita. No, many of the things were just politically motivated. So, if somebody comes into my house and starts attacking my family members, I'm not going to be just sitting there, oh, no, it's okay, yeah, let them do it. No, I'll fight. So violence is yes, it's the last alternative, but it is an alternative. That's another reason why it's being spoken there, right? So these are the things that the setting teaches, and there is a possibility that all these misunderstood. Some people can say, okay, Bhagavad Gita is teaching us violence, so we'll have violence, right? But you cannot overlook the philosophy part also. You cannot just take one section and say, oh yeah, it was spoken in the battlefield, we'll also go have war. No, there are other reasons also for it. So don't get carried away by the literalistic call of violence. Right? Krishna is asking us to do action, as I was saying, the 8.7 verse, in Krishna consciousness. I'll pause here. I'm done. If anybody has any thoughts, comments, we can go over that.